What's up, guys? How we doing? Happy Halloween. Chuck and Nick here to bring you some hopefully good stuff on this short three gamer. Nick, how we doing? What do we how did yesterday's slate go?
Yesterday could have gone better. Had almost 100% Dinwiddie who got hurt. Also play heavy on FanDuel and their site broke down, so couldn't even sweat this slate or make swaps. Not to get too down about it. I mean, it's in the past, but certainly could have gone better. I mean, got a few things right, but man, just not being able to even follow along with the slate is tough. Gotta start moving some of my action to DraftKings over the next few days for sure.
Yeah, I think I got to be more careful, especially on the huge slates about playing both sites because
hmm
my lineups were messed up, and then I didn't even realize it wasn't going to let me upload my changes to FanDuel, so I just wasted all that time, and it I lost a little bit on DraftKings, and then I profited like $11 on FanDuel, so I couldn't even take advantage of the
The
of the
refund.
yeah. So it's like
Yeah.
that's just how it's going to go sometimes.
But
But any thoughts on any specific players from yesterday?
not really. I mean, I'm a big Nets guy. It was good to see Lonnie Walker, Cam Thomas do their thing. I actually had a bet that was a parlay of Thomas to score 35 and the Nets to win. It paid out like 10 to 1 or something. Thomas had 33, so that was a bad beat. But yeah, other than that, man, nothing too shocking. I mean, I've been just digging into this slate. I'm trying to even remember who else was on yesterday's slate. Um, but yeah, man, just looking ahead, we get a long season, so I don't want to spend too much time stuck in that one. But honestly, if I wasn't digging through these three games, I'd probably have better things to say.
Yeah, we have we're 1 week into the NBA season, so it's been a
Mm,
pretty good week so far to start. I think we've done a pretty good job on this show. We're going to talk about things every day. We're going to name players. Sometimes they don't work out. Sometimes the process is incorrect. I think the thing that we have to keep in mind playing DFS, especially NBA, is just even when we get things right, was it the right process
yeah,
getting
Herb
there?
Jones rings a bell now. I mean, we swapped on him with a ton of Herb. He was the right play with Ingram getting ruled out. And then he picked up two fouls, I think, in 3 or 4 minutes. So that one definitely hurt. Had a ton of CJ, which was good. But yeah, that Herb Jones play definitely hurt. And then I was high on Bonchero over on FanDuel because he was 7K flat. Another guy, instant foul trouble, barely played in the second quarter. So that was rough as well. But yeah, process over results. And I know it's easy to say as a tout, but over the course of a season, I mean, as long as you're refining the process, I think you come out on top in the long term for sure.
Yeah, and especially seeing how low the Pelicans came in yesterday, it was
hmm
absolutely the correct process to swap onto him. I ended up with like 50% Herb Jones, and I thought regardless of the result,
Right.
I'm very happy to be that far over the field on what the model said was one of the top value plays.
Agreed.
So, um, so let's just get into it. We have a couple of injury news today. Donovan Mitchell was questionable earlier, but I kind of think he leans towards playing. I've built my lineups as if he's in, and Karis LeVert sounds like he's not going to play, but he's also questionable. So we should get that news hopefully while we're on the show.
Mhm.
So we'll see. Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, I mean, first thing, Garland's out, so these guys are very, very important to the slate. Underdog had a funny quote tweet. Donovan Mitchell tweets hashtag let him know before every game. And yeah, it says whenever he tweets this, he's played 76 out of the 77 times that he's tweeted
Okay.
this. So if we're looking for reasons to believe he plays tonight, maybe that's one. After that tweet, Bickerstaff came out and said that he is still questionable. I think he goes here. It seems like he's going to go here. But yeah, I don't know about Levert. It's interesting. They both allegedly have hamstring injuries right now. I don't know if that's them trying to, I don't know, create rest scenarios or what with the new league policies around the injury reporting. But to me, I'm right with you. I think it's more likely than not that we see Mitchell in and Levert out.
Nice.
Super relevant though because again, Garland's out, still no Jared Allen either.
Yeah, and that being the first game starting so far before the other two games, if anything comes out about the last two games, we're not going to have that news before lock. And so I mentioned this yesterday, be a little careful with the first game, just so we have those open spots for later. And yesterday that ended up, it would have paid off if it worked out. But today it's kind of less important because it's a three gamer, but it's still something to be aware of.
Mhm.
Yeah, you mentioned Darius Garland's out. Devin Booker was announced out this morning after being doubtful yesterday, and so Kevin Durant's going to be one of the top plays again. And I don't think we really have any other relevant injury news that's going to affect what we're doing. James Harden got traded to the Clippers last night.
Yep.
Super sick. I'm repping my Clippers shirt today. Happy Halloween.
There you go.
Um,
I
but
mean, yeah, the league's shaking up again. Harden always gets what he wants somehow. Yeah,
Yeah,
man. No
it's
other player gets what they want the way James Harden does.
no, and it's got to be the worst trade in NBA history. Like people are going to look back on it in 10, 20 years and be like, what was that? James Harden, future Hall of Famer. None of those guys he got traded for are even going to sniff the Hall of Fame. And they got one draft pick for 2028 that could end up being good. The Clippers pick if the Clippers are bad then, but it's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's a lot of coke from Sixer fans today. And I'm a
Right.
Nets fan. We won the Ben Simmons trade, so I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Oh man, I saw some slander about Ben Simmons, but Ben Simmons looks great on the Nets.
He
I like
does,
it.
man.
So
Yeah, it's easy to slander the guy, but he's healthy, and I think people forget that he was hurt most of that last year with the Sixers when he was still on the floor. So
yeah.
that's we could do a whole hour on that, though. We don't need to.
So we have a couple comments in the chat already. Jose Morales, thanks for being a regular viewer here. Durant or Randall or both. So Durant is probably going to be the top pay up option on the slate today. Let me just get rid of these guards here.
Agreed.
His usage is high. I know that he didn't quite get there in the previous game, but he lost minutes to blowout run. It looks like he was on track to get what we wanted out of that price tag. And his price, where's Durant today? 10-5 on DraftKings, 11 on FanDuel. I mean, he's the highest price guy by almost $1,000, next to Donovan Mitchell. And his ownership on DraftKings at 39%. I have a feeling that's going to be a little bit higher. FanDuel 45%. I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit higher too. I was getting more of that in my initial runs.
Yeah, I'm
And
with you.
and Julius Randle, I think he's a great play today too. I kind of thought people were going to be on Evan Mobley a little bit, but I guess with Donovan Mitchell coming back and Evan Mobley's price being elevated, that people aren't as willing to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the first guy in for me is Durant, second's Mitchell if he's in. And I think there's a lot of decent but not great value on this slate. So the way I'm doing it is I'm going to have Durant and Mitchell, if Mitchell's playing, obviously, in almost all of my lineups, and then see what I can kind of rotate around those two, because I really do feel strongly about both of them. I mean, we have the Clippers guys as pay ups. We're getting a little bit of discount on them as well as a Randall. I do want shares. But at the same time, I just think the usage rates we're going to see for guys like Durant and Mitchell here really separate them from the rest of the pack on a very small slate. So yeah, I want to be over the field, even if they're chalk.
Yeah, I agree. I'm definitely interested in mixing in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard because their ownership, I think, is kind of low today, but they are the pivots. So the top studs are going to be Donovan Mitchell and Kevin Durant by almost any metric you look at. And just looking at the overall slate from the OF index, we can see that Kevin Durant and Donovan Mitchell are very close to top, but Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are right below them at much lower ownership. And so, like I said, we still want to prioritize KD and Donovan Mitchell, but Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, even Julius Randle, they're all going to look like great options.
Yep.
And rough draft, disgusting. Got beard and PJ for baguette chucker. Holy smokes! Yeah, it's it's not a great one. So
I mean, in the Morris twins are continuing to rotate across the league. I think between the two of them, they play for almost every team now.
yeah, well, Morris was kind of out of the rotation in LA,
Yeah,
so
he was
we'll see.
pissed.
We'll see if he
Yeah,
cracks it.
yeah, I forget which song. I think it was a Meek Mill song he tweeted. He's like, I had to get out of Hollywood. And yeah, he posted those lyrics on his IG today. So we'll
All
see
right,
if he's even a factor in Philly or not. Maybe he'll be trying to get out of Philly next.
yeah, I mean, he's got to fill in that PJ Tucker role. Not that PJ Tucker has been great through a few games this season, but I mean, he's kind of expected to be an anchor on defense, not necessarily because of what he does, but just the communication and just being on the court and,
Right. Yeah.
firing up the rest of the team. So,
Yeah, glue guys. Yeah, you need to have guys like that. But, I mean, it's not really a haul back for Harden.
right. So let's go ahead and get into the guards. And we have a comment from Katsu. I think Brunson will show out tonight for sure. So Brunson is a guy that I'm pretty interested in at 20% or less ownership. I think his price is good on both sides. He has a ceiling. Should be a great game. And we're all targeting Donovan Mitchell. I think a lot of the field's going to be on Julius Randle. So Jalen Brunson is kind of a good sort of a pivot, not quite contrarian, but I like getting to Jalen Brunson. He's showing up fourth in the model right below Russ, PG, and Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do like Randall, as we mentioned before. I'm also very high on Brunson here. Probably like a more than Randall in a vacuum. I know they're different positions. But I do want to say, I mean, on paper, people see the Cavs. They think good defense. And I brought this up on a previous stream. I don't know if it was you or Eric, but the Cavs without Allen, their defense changes a lot. And it's not like Allen's the best defensive player in the league or anything, but he really does kind of anchor what they do. So yeah, I think this is a better matchup than maybe it looks like on paper if you're pulling in data from last season. And yeah, I really like Brunson here. He's a guy who has 50 fantasy point upside, and there's only a handful of those on this slate, so he's definitely someone I'm going to be mixing into lineups.
I like it. And then after those four, the guard quality kind of drops off a bit. We do have Devin Vassell at a decent price on both sites. I think he's a fine, sort of a contrarian play. His ownership seems fine. Max Struess is going to be popping. Max Struess is popping in the model. So just in case you're not aware, the OF index does not take into account salary. And so when these guys are popping at lower prices and like he's showing up above Devin Vassell, it's basically the same, but it's just something to note that
Mm-hmm.
he's pretty close to Jalen Brunson, and we can save $2,000. So Max Struess, he's definitely going to be a spot that we're interested in tonight. And then I think the other big spots are the other Phoenix guards:
Mm-hmm.
Grayson Allen, Eric Gordon, Josh Okogie. I guess Josh Okogie has small forward eligibility, but
Yep.
Markel Fultz, pretty interesting. He had a great game against the Lakers last night. Finally showed up this season. I thought his ownership was going to come in a little bit higher on DraftKings. 28% seems reasonable. 56% on FanDuel. It's a little bit weird because we have to play 2 point guards over there. It's
Mm-hmm.
really high. I think he's still a fine play though. And then Cole Anthony, the model doesn't love him today, projected for 25 minutes, but I think he's going to be a decent pivot since we really don't have that many low on plays today. And I think Cole Anthony, he's a fine play. Don't go crazy on him though.
Yeah, it's tricky with Anthony and Fultz. It's like I probably want one or the other in a lot of my lineups. It's just on a given night, it's rare that we see them both go off. They do share the floor a bit, but yeah, it's almost an either or situation there. You also have Suggs in the Magic backcourt. You're getting them a little bit cheaper, more scoring dependent than the other two are going to be doing a lot of facilitating. But I don't mind him. I mean, I was looking at the game logs and I was surprised at the numbers he's been putting up recently. And I do want to just mention Gary Harris. I'm not all that interested in him. I don't think the model is either. He was going off last night, but a big part of that was Banchero's foul trouble. Like he was getting a ton of minutes and a lot of extra usage because Banchero was off the floor. So don't look too deeply into that last game. I think I'm with you. I think it's Fultz probably the safest of the three. Anthony's a very logical pivot in tournaments, and then Suggs behind him. Gary Harris on a 3 game slate, maybe, but I don't think his minutes are secure.
Yeah, I like the Suggs call a lot. I wonder if he's going to be a little bit. I would definitely expect him to come in for higher than the 13% on DraftKings anyway. Just if people are looking at the box scores, I think he's put up almost 35 fantasy points 2 times in a row.
Oh
But
yeah.
but he's on the court. He closed the game. He tried to take that game winner. I was really rooting for overtime. I really wanted him to make that shot. But
Yeah,
he's going to be a good spot on both sites. And you mentioned Gary Harris. I don't think he missed a shot last night. He shot 5 for 5 from three, but he is the
ridiculous.
bottom of the model. He's more of a showdown play to me if you're playing
Yeah, I
that
agree.
late slowdown, or maybe you get there on the night slate. Just a couple other guys. Where are we at? Jeremy Sochan. He's had a
Mm.
couple bad games in a row. Still a starting point guard for the Spurs, as far as we know. Coming in for less than 10% ownership, I think this is a low ownership spot that we can get to as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, the first few slates, I was really banging the drum of Sochan. Really liked him. Loved that the new role would involve him taking the ball up the court a lot. But yeah, I mean, he's been played off the floor a couple times. A little bit of foul trouble here or there, shot not falling. But yeah, I mean, everyone has a very short memory in NBA DFS, and if he had a couple decent games, I think we'd see that ownership up around some of the more popular guards. So yeah, I think there's a little bit too much recency bias on him. So I like him a lot. And then the pivot off him is Trey Jones,
I
even
like it.
lower owned, very similar player, going to see very similar minutes. It's tough to gauge these rotations with pop, but it looks like most of these guys that are regular contributors are getting just under 30 minutes a night. So I think you could get Jones or Sochan into your lineups and feel pretty good about it. But at the same time, I mean, I don't know that I want to play both of them together. But yeah, it's a 3 game slate, so you get a little weird that way. But yeah, I do think we need to talk a little bit more about the Phoenix guards just because Goodwin's so popular, and I think he should be. He's one of the safer pieces of chalk, probably. But then we see Grayson Allen, Eric Gordon, both super scoring dependent, but also cheap and popular. So I'm curious what your thoughts are because, like I said before, I want to get Mitchell and KD into most of my lineups. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to play a lot of these cheaper guards. So guys like Grayson Allen are going to be kind of unavoidable in a lot of spots. But what's your take on the Phoenix backcourt with no Booker Beal?
So Grayson Allen's price on FanDuel anyway, I think it's a little bit too cheap.
Yeah, agreed.
For we're projecting him for 32 minutes. I think he's probably my favorite guard play. I do think I'm getting more of Jordan Goodwin in my runs. I'm with the field on him on DraftKings, and it looks like I am slightly over the field on him on FanDuel. Oh no, I'm exactly with the field. Actually, I got 55% exactly in my last run.
That makes sense.
So I think they're fine. And then Eric Gordon, we saw explode in the first half. 9 for 12 shooting in the first
Yeah.
half, and then he didn't do anything in the second half. But they blew out Utah, I think. So he missed a few minutes of that fourth quarter run.
Hmm.
But I mean, I think we want to mix all these guys up. So you mentioned we probably want to put in a rule, play at most of one Cole Anthony or Markelle Fultz. I
Right.
do have a rule that's play at most two of Grayson Allen, Eric Gordon, Josh Okogie, and Yuta Watanabe. I didn't include Jordan Goodwin in that group. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Yeah, good one. I mean, the thing is, you look at Allen, you look at Gordon and Watanabe, they're all super scoring dependent. So whoever's shot is falling is going to be the good play tonight. I think with Goodwin, you're getting some rebounds, you're getting assists, etc. Even some stocks on occasion. So yeah, I think Goodwin is the safest of the bunch. And if I'm eating a piece of chalk, it's him, and I'd rather rotate between the others. So I'm with you. Obviously, Yuta probably the least likely of that group to go off, but at the same time, he's going to be the lowest owned and he's the cheapest. So, yeah, I think that's a good rule you have set, and I'm fine leaving Goodwin out of that group. I'm going to have a ton of Goodwin. I think it's unavoidable.
Yeah, I think so too. And we did get a question in the chat, favorite values tonight. So our favorite guard values, we just talked about the Phoenix guys. I think we want to rotate them in. It does look like I'm going to have two of them in most of my lineups, Jordan Goodwin included. And
Yeah,
Norman Powell is showing up second on the model in value. He's been playing awesome. The Clippers bench is kind of gutted right now because of the James Harden trade. They don't have as many guys. They lost all of their power forwards. And
right.
so Norman Powell was questionable, I believe. So if he does end up playing, he's probably due for a few extra minutes. We'll have to see what Ty Lue does with that rotation. But yeah, he's going to be a great value play. Just if he ends up out, it's going to be a little bit tougher of a pivot, but we can figure that out. And
Yeah, there's a
then,
lot of guards for Orlando. Maybe if you can get Powell, and well, he's guard only on DK, so yeah, you'll be able to pivot to someone from Orlando on FanDuel. If you're going Powell, maybe just use him at shooting guard, so you have that easy pivot. Because if you put him in small forward, it's probably tougher to make that move. But I don't know. That game's close to the Phoenix game, though, right?
yeah, Phoenix starts at 7, Clippers at 7:30, West Coast time,
Yeah, I'm
and
Eastern.
so
I got you.
we will be able to, yeah, if you do have Norman Powell in that shooting guard position, we're going to have some options from Phoenix. And even in the small forward, I believe we can swap to Josh Okogie, no problem.
Yeah,
And we had a quick question in chat. What about Wendell Carter on FanDuel? Just very quickly before we'll get into it more in centers, but I got 2% of him in my initial FanDuel run, so it's not someone I'm quite getting to today, but we'll talk about why when we get to centers.
yeah.
And so let's go ahead and go to small forward, power forward positions. So, Josh Kogi, chalk forward today, and I had a decision on the previous slate on my best lineup. Do I play Josh Kogi or Eric Gordon? And obviously, I picked Josh Kogi, but I went with the model, and it didn't work out. Eric Gordon got hot, but the model strongly prefers Josh Kogi. His OF index is only a little bit higher, but the DK value is it's a good bit higher, and the ownership's basically the same. His price is very good on DraftKings, the 4,200. On FanDuel, it's a closer decision, but DraftKings,
Yeah.
4,200, Josh Okogie. He only took a couple shots last game, which is kind of frustrating. With everybody out, he kind of took a
Yeah.
leap on offense last season, so I expected more from him. But
I'm with you. And I mean, that first game of the season, he looked awesome. He was crashing the rim, scoring putbacks, and doing everything. I like Okogie because, again, he does more than just shoot, but when he's not shooting at all, it becomes frustrating quick. So I think he's a good play. I'll definitely have some, but again, another player with a wide range of outcomes. Doesn't rely as much on scoring, but when he's not scoring at all, it's kind of a catch-22 in that, yeah, you're not going to get good games out of him when he's not shooting the ball. So I like him here, though. It's a soft matchup with the Spurs.
I mean, these three Phoenix guys, they project so close to each other. Their prices are pretty similar, and they're all projected for 30, 31 minutes. So I think
Right.
we just mix them up. I don't have a strong preference one over the other, but I would say maybe Eric Gordon's a little more boomer bust. Grayson Allen, he could show up, he could not, but he's going to be on the court. And
Yeah.
Josh Okogie, model's favorite forward value play today. And so we start by OF index. Obviously, Kevin Durant at the top. I'm perfectly fine playing Kevin Durant as much as you want. And Kawhi and PG, I want to mix in a little bit since I think their ownerships are coming in a little bit low. Maybe not Kawhi on FanDuel. I'm still going to get there. I'm just saying his ownership's not quite that low. And
Yeah.
then Julius Evan Mobley's price is a little bit high, but at the ownership on DraftKings, I'm going to take some shots on him. I don't mind getting there. He's not a priority. And then you mentioned Paolo got into foul trouble last night
Yep.
and he lost some minutes, but the 7,100 price tag on FanDuel, it's incorrect. That's reflected in the ownership, 39%, only 9% on DraftKings. So he's a GPP play over there. And then I want to point out Franz Wagner. He was one of my favorite, definitely on the night slate, one of my favorite plays last night. He had 36 fantasy points through 3 quarters. He checked back in with 6 minutes left in the fourth and did absolutely nothing else for the rest of the game. So that was cool. But
Yeah.
I'm going to go right back there tonight. I think he's a little bit under-owned. Even the 33% on FanDuel, I'm pretty comfortable with. And then Max Strus as so I mentioned I lean towards Donovan Mitchell playing and Karis LeVert being out, and Max Strus, he's Max Strus. People are going to be scared to play him, I think, a little bit, but he's already displayed a very high ceiling so far this
Right.
season. So I think we can get there pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I like Strus as well. And we got to remember Garland's out, so that's definitely going to help him. I'm with you on Franz Wagner, though. A lot of people I feel like overlook him because he feels a little bit overpriced compared to some of the other Magic guys. But it's not as crowded on the wing with that team as it is in the backcourt. We also have Jonathan Isaac out tonight, which obviously doesn't seem like the biggest thing. But on a limited slate, if you're going to get a couple extra minutes for someone like Franz, I could definitely give him a little bit of a boost. I think Isaac's been playing like 10 to 15 minutes per night, so those minutes have to go somewhere. Maybe they go to Franz, maybe they go to Gary Harris. I know Wagner's already playing more than 30 a night, so probably not a huge boost, but it definitely solidifies him, if nothing else. Bonchero as well, a guy who sometimes plays himself off the floor. Isaac being out should just secure minutes for these wings for Orlando.
Excuse me. And just a couple other guys I want to mention. I'm very interested in Keldon Johnson at his low ownership. I mentioned him the last time the Spurs were on the slate. Pretty sure they got blown out, so he didn't really play that much. Everyone on the Spurs played awful. But at these ownerships, I think his price is appropriate. So I'm going to be getting to Keldon Johnson. And then RJ Barrett, feel like he's kind of being forgotten. The 6K price, it doesn't really matter the matchup for me. If RJ Barrett's around the 6K price, especially on a limited slate, I'm willing to get there a little bit. And we already mentioned Jeremy Sokan. I think this is one of the better low owned spots to get to tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you. And we're in agreement that we don't think Levert plays, but if he's suddenly in, I mean, this is the lowest owned we've ever seen him with Garland out of the lineup. I know the price is up a bit, but we're looking at under 20% on both sites. I think everyone's in the same boat right now saying, yeah, he probably doesn't play. He's on the injury report. We haven't heard anything. But if he's in, I mean, and you're going to get him around 20% with Garland out, I'd love some Levert at that ownership. So definitely keep an eye on that one. Again, not what we're expecting, but something that could shake out that way. But then Isaac Okoro is another guy. I mean, never someone I'm super excited to play, but he has looked better this season. And it sounds weird, but he actually does kind of facilitate at times, take the ball off the floor with some of these other guards out of the lineup. I know Ty Jerome's out as well. So if Mitchell and Levert were out, I'd really, really like Okoro here, but I expect that would be reflected in the ownership. But as things stand, if Levert's out and Mitchell's in, we're looking at 5% ownership on Okoro on FanDuel, 11 on DK. I don't know if that holds, but that's just another forward I think at his price could certainly exceed value pretty easily.
Especially since he's priced so closely to the Phoenix guys for
Right.
a fraction of the ownership.
Mm-hmm.
He's a pretty good pivot, risky pivot. The
Yeah.
chalk is a chalk for a reason. But if he just outscores those guys by like 1 point, that could be enough to be tournament winning.
Yeah, and he goes on runs, man, where he's scoring like crazy fantasy point per minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's rare, but on a 3-game slate, those are the type of shots you want to take in the high risk contests.
Carmen in the chat, single entry GPP. How many players would I max per team? I just put a max of 4 tonight, and it was mostly because I was getting 5 Phoenix players on a lot of my DraftKings lineups. But I think 4 is fine. It's just we have enough value options that limiting it to 3 for every team, I think, is a little bit too limiting. And so, I would set it to 4 and then play with it, see if see how it comes out and see how you like it.
Yeah, this is in single entry too. I mean, this is not something I like to do, but on these smaller slates, there are some players that'll just load up on one game and hope it goes to double overtime and climb the leaderboard that way. Not something I do, but if that's not something you're doing, then I agree with you. I think you're limited to 4 on FanDuel anyway, so 4 on both sites certainly makes sense.
And on that note, I think that the team or the game that I'm most over the field on tonight is the Clippers Magic. Obviously, I have a lot of the Suns in there. I have a bunch of Spurs players, Cleveland. I'm getting to a few Knicks, but it's the largest spread on the slate. I think they're all under-owned, and so it's a spot I'm getting to. Maybe the Suns game blows out again and they lose minutes again. We don't plan for blowouts, but it's something to consider a little bit more on a small slate.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking now too, and we see the lower total in this Knicks Cavs game on a bigger slate. Like this would be a game I wouldn't be rushing to at all, but it's obviously unavoidable here. But yeah, if you were going to load up on a game, it would be one of the later two, and the more competitive one, even with Orlando on the back to back, should be that Magic Clippers game. Again, the Clippers missing a lot of their power forwards and defensive guys off that bench, so maybe this game's a little bit more competitive than usual.
And just a couple more cheap forwards that I just want to mention. Josh Hart, 4,100 on DraftKings. We only have him projected for 22 minutes, but 4,100 at 6% ownership. I'll take some shots on Josh Hart. The 4,900 on FanDuel, it's a little bit more than I'd like to pay, but at 2% ownership on a 3-game slate, steals and blocks are worth 3 over there. And Josh Hart, he should, in theory, have a pretty safe rebounding floor. And so Josh Hart is a guy I'm slightly interested as a contrarian piece. Mo Wagner is like a deep GPP play. It's probably better just for the night slate or the showdown. And
Yeah.
then Utah is kind of getting forgotten. I kind of feel like he should be compared to the other Phoenix guards.
Yeah. Yuta, if he gets hot, has a ceiling. And if we're talking about gross cheap plays, I'll throw one out there. Chetty Osman.
Yeah.
If the Spurs are blown out, he could get extra run. Or, he's one of the vets on this team. There are occasions when Pop's going to want him on the floor in competitive games. And he has been hitting value at this price. It's a gross play. But if you're desperate for value at low ownership, I think you can do worse than Chetty here.
He was the guy I took a look at earlier too. I do not mind getting to Chetty. These prices at 2% ownership, I'm going to take
Right.
shots. I think it's
Yeah,
great.
like I said, I want to lock in the studs I love and then mix and match the other junk that we have to deal with. So yeah, if I'm loading up on very expensive guys like KD and Donovan Mitchell, I'm going to have to mix in some of these cheaper guys.
And so this was a thing the other night when Giannis was the top of the OF index and he was showing up very close to the top of value. We have Kawhi Leonard pretty close to the top of value, and just this is
Mm,
a points per dollar rating, the DKFD value ratings. Kawhi, Paul George, Julius Keldon, RJ Barrett, Franz Wagner. Yeah, KD is a little bit lower here, but he is expensive, so it's understandable. But just keep in mind, we're recommending a lot of these low owned plays, but they are all contrarian play. You probably don't want to mix more than one of those guys we just
yeah,
mentioned
yeah,
in a lineup.
yeah. Exactly.
One is
Yeah.
enough.
hmm
So let's go to center. There's a few interesting things at center today. It's just Nurkic. He's coming in for 39% on both sites. I think he's going to be a little bit more popular than that. I know a couple of the other sites were really touting him tonight as the core center play. And we've seen him get into foul trouble a couple times so far this season. Foul trouble is not something that we're predicting, but it's something to keep in mind. And if he's going to be the chalk center, his price is fine. His price is great. But I really want to mix in like Mitchell Robinson, I think is the
That,
main
was
other
mine.
center
That
I'm
was my
interested in.
favorite center. Yep. Mitchell Robinson's my favorite center tonight. He was off the floor, I think, either due to foul trouble or blowout. I'm trying to remember why, but he's getting more minutes this year. In seasons past, we saw like a 24-24 split between him and Hartenstein. Seems like that's gone now. It seems like he's going to play close to 30 every night, and the prices haven't adjusted for that yet. So Mitchell Robinson, my favorite center right now. And again, no Jared Allen for the Cavs. It's a softer matchup than usual on paper.
I like that a lot. And so Julius Randle has center eligibility, and a lot of the times I would just say try and make sure that he's in your power forward spot. If you're using the builder, what you can do is say play one of these guys and just make a list of all the actual centers. And so Julius Randle doesn't end up in there as much. But today, I think it's okay to play Julius Randle in your center spot. I'm probably going to not get there too much in my center spot, but it's kind of a pivot off Nurkic, I guess.
Yeah, and this is weird. Like on the bigger slates, there's usually like 10 good centers, and like we've seen a lot of underpriced centers, especially on DK this season. But this slate in particular, it's weird to say, but center might be the thinnest position on the slate, even price considered.
Yeah, I mentioned on stream yesterday that point guard and center are typically the strongest positions, the positions that we want to play in the flex spot on DraftKings. And
Mhm.
I did a review of the slate on Results DB last night, and center dominated the utility
Yeah,
spot. But there were 11 games yesterday, so that makes sense.
there are a
Whereas,
lot of good centers too.
Drew Eubanks is pulling 20 and 27% ownership. That's how thin the position is today. 3,700 is a good price. 4,100 is a good price. But
Yeah, you get
I
power forward with him on FanDuel too. Just want to drop that, but
that's
yeah,
a it's if people are going to try to go there to get the value, I would actually rather play Isaiah Hartenstein at 3,500 on DraftKings, even the 4,500 on FanDuel. It's not a great price, but I might take some shots there. More interested on DraftKings though.
yeah, I'm totally with you. And if you leave yourself some room to pivot, it looks like Zubac is still questionable. I expect him to play, especially since they're thin tonight. If there's a chance he goes, I think he goes. But if he's out, obviously Mason Plumlee would become very relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. And Zubac's ownership 11% on DraftKings, even at this 5,900 price. I've talked about how he does have a ceiling, and he's already shown it this year. And if he ends up being in, a lot of people are going to be locked into centers from this first game. I guess they can pivot off Nurkic if they had him in there, but Zubac at 11 and 20% ownership, just under 6K, I'm fine with. If he's out, Mason Plumlee is probably going to be pretty chalky on FanDuel at 4,200. But the 4,900 price on DraftKings is great. I mean, Mason Plumlee is a very good fantasy point per minute guy. And as Nick just mentioned, they're kind of short tonight, so they can't really, they have to play whoever they have available at big man.
Right.
Not that Wendell Carter's super a guy that we're afraid of or anything, but
Yeah, no, I'm looking up his height right now. Actually, I'm like usually when the Clippers go smaller and Zubac isn't playing, I feel like it was a lot of Covington. Maybe at least last season. I don't know if they were
yeah.
using him as much this year. But with him out of the picture, maybe they have to use Zubac more tonight, even against a smaller Magic team after Carter. Not one of the bigger centers. So in certain matchups, you could see other teams going smaller. So usually that's something I'd be concerned with here. But I think Zubac is a little safer than usual if he's in there again because of that Harden trade and because they're thin in the front court, more so on the forward spot. But those are the guys who are playing small ball five against some of these smaller teams.
Yeah, so I think Nick and I's favorite guys are Mitchell Robinson and Zubac at that low ownership, assuming Zubac plays. And then I do just want to mention Zach Collins. I think his price is appropriate. I think that he's usually a pretty safe guy. Protected for 31 minutes. I mean, he's been hurt most of his career, so he hasn't really been able to display a ceiling and play huge minutes. But on this slate, he's pulling some ownership, but I think he's a fine play too.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah, I like Collins. I mean, I think people are shying away because of that 24-minute game last time out, but that was a blowout. Before that, he's gone over 30 the two previous games. He's fine. And yeah, Nurkic chalk. I know we kind of just went over it, but he's solid. I mean, in your low risk stuff. But at the same time, Mitchell, really, I think even in low risk, I really, really do like Mitchell tonight. Mitchell Robinson, that is.
yeah, I don't want to make it sound like we're saying not to play Nurkic. He's still I'm still just under this 38% on my FanDuel run, and then on DraftKings, he's my highest owned center right now. So we're still playing Nurkic.
Yeah, he's still a damn good play, but
yeah.
Everyone else is talking about him. We got to talk about some of these other guys.
Yeah.
So I'm with you.
And I don't want to just forget about Victor Wembanyama. I've talked about my issues with getting to him is that minutes ceiling I don't think is very high. He did play 31 minutes in his second game when he was doing very well. 7,900 is not a bad price tag, though, especially on FanDuel, where blocks and steals are worth 23% ownership versus 10% on DraftKings. I think he's an okay GPP play tonight. Like, I'm probably going to get there a little bit in my lineups for the first time this season, but I'm going to prioritize the other guys that we just talked about a little bit more.
Yeah, if anything, he's an ownership pivot. Feels kind of similar to Zion's rookie year in that he was always a high upside play, but usually over owned. The difference is I think the field's gotten sharper since Zion was a rookie, and most people aren't playing him, so you really don't have that GPP appeal on most slates. But yeah, 23% on FanDuel, about where he should be. Only 10% on DK. I think it does make sense in tournaments to take a few shots. Obviously, not the highest likelihood that he's playing 30 minutes, but if it's a competitive game and he's doing well, I mean, he could make a difference in a big way.
Yeah, we don't hate it. And I just want to point out, so Jose Morales had a question in the chat, if we have 4,300 remaining for utility. And the way that I would just go ahead and look at it, if you are a member of the Occupy site, you have access to the model already. If you're not, you can sign up for as little as $7 a week. There's instructions in the description below, and it's $1 a day. I think it's great value. If it helps you win a little bit more on just one day that week, it's already pays for itself. But open up the model, just slide the slider down to, it's hard to get it exact, but this 4,500 range, and just see who's popping up at the top of OF index, at the top of DK value. And it looks like the model prefers Josh Okogie, Norman Powell today, pretty clearly over everybody else. And so those would be my answers. Josh Okogie and Norman Powell are going to look pretty good there. And Norman Powell, there's a little question mark, but we should hopefully have that news before Phoenix starts, so it should make an easier decision still.
Yep.
And Anson Williams, Nas Little. So we talked about all the other Phoenix guys who are going to be pulling ownership. Nas Little, so he's a guy who I somewhat always have interest in. I'm probably going to get there on the night slate. I don't know if I'm going to get there on the main slate, but mint price 3,100, 4% ownership, 3,700 on FanDuel. We haven't projected for 16.6 minutes. Let's see if I can pull this up. You have an opinion on Nas Little?
Yeah, when he got drafted to Portland, I thought it was like the best draft pick ever. Like him next to CJ and Dame, I thought it was going to go so well. But yeah, I mean, his name's Little. He does very little when he's on the floor. Yeah, I would rather get to Yuta for 300 more if you can find it. Just a guy you know is going to at least be putting the ball up. Three single digit performances at a little. I don't mean to just go off game logs, but even with Booker and Beal out, he's doing next to nothing. So maybe he builds confidence with this team over time. The only reason he played 20 minutes against Utah, I think, was that blowout. So I don't know. I'm not getting too little much on a 3-game slate. I think there's more merit to it than obviously a bigger slate. But I mean, you could get Yuta for just 300 more. Trying to look at some of these other guys. Metu hasn't been getting minutes, has he? No. But yeah, I mean, if you could find the 300 for Yuta Watanabe, I think I'd make that pivot pretty confidently. I guess you could use him as a last man in, but I'm looking across some of these rosters now to see if there's anyone else in that price range I prefer. It's just, I don't know. It's tough for me to click a guy that very rarely does anything for fantasy purposes. I really like the player coming into the league, but he's been about as disappointing as anyone, at least in my opinion. Definitely some personal bias because I was pretty damn excited when he got drafted. But yeah, I don't know. It sounds like you like him a little bit more than I do.
Yeah, I will take the other side of that. And he's been awful in his minutes, but he did play the 21 minutes, partially due to blowout. He's shooting 1 for 8 from 3 on the season. He went 0 for 5 last game. So just the fact that he
That'll
took
improve. Yeah,
five threes,
that's big. Yeah.
min price, it's not like we're trying to squeeze in every stud tonight, but maybe he helps us squeeze in some studs. He puts up 12, 13 fantasy points. That could be enough. And at no ownership, I was just checking my runs. Like I'm at 0%. I might force in my 150 tonight. I might force in like, I don't know,
A
3
little
or
bit.
4%. Yeah, we're like, we're
Yeah.
not. It's not someone that we're part of, but he is a pivot off of the other guys. Not a good one, but he does exist in the NBA, I guess.
He does exist. It is a 3-game slate, and sometimes that's enough to be viable. But yeah, I mean, if you can get to Yuta, I think he's only 3% owned on Nikkei. I feel much better about him. But yeah, if you can't find that 300, he will get minutes and he will take a 3 or 2. So if they fall, he could do okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
he's 18 minutes, 15 minutes, 21 minutes. It's not the worst, especially at 3,400. If Yuta does his 15.5 fantasy points or 18.5 fantasy points, it's very reasonable that he could be a great help to your lineups tonight. So he's definitely an option.
Absolutely. And I mean, yeah, like I said before, and I know I'm getting redundant with this, but I'm jamming Mitchell and KD into almost anything. If I have a third stud, you're going to see guys like Yuta trickling into lineups a lot. And yeah, this is a stars and scrubs night for me on a 3-game slate, which is usually not the sharpest way to play. But yeah, I don't know. I don't mind a little Yuta Watanabe. I'm looking at some of the other spots. We talked about Chetty. Just looking at the really, really cheap guys right now. I know we got a Discord full of Amani Bates fans. I don't think I'm getting there tonight. I don't know if you feel any differently, but I have a feeling there's a few listening, eager to hear our take on him.
So I do think Amani Bates is good. I don't know
Good,
why he went
yes.
so late in the draft,
Right.
but they don't care to give him minutes. And so Donovan Mitchell was out last game. Karis LeVert was in. Amani Bates, did he? I think he
I think he
played a
played
couple
2 minutes
minutes.
or something.
Yeah, and
6
tonight
minutes,
it's
took
just
one shot. Yeah.
it's just even if Karis is out, I don't see them going to Amani Bates. I think he's like, so you guys know I love playing contrarian. I love playing guys other players aren't getting to, but even I think that Amani Bates is a little bit too deep tonight.
Yeah, he's 19. Like they want him to develop a little bit into more of a player, and I think he will. I'm with you as far as the talent goes. One guy, Georges Niang, I guess, is maybe a guy you could get to on the Cavs. It's just if I'm making major punts like that, I'm having trouble taking them from that 7:30 game because I want the flexibility from the 10 and 10:30 games. So more comfortable taking risks like that in the later games. But that's me personally. It's just I don't know. As talented as he is, I just don't see them giving him any run anytime soon. Um, Unfortunately.
Well, on that Georges Niang note, on the previous slate that Karras went off and Donovan Mitchell was out, Georges Niang somehow ended up in my single entry. Like, I mean, he didn't do terrible, but he wasn't exactly someone that helped us win anything. But I do want to mention Dean Wade. I'm not sure if we mentioned him when going over forwards, but he's a
Starting,
pretty
yeah,
decent value play on DraftKings, especially at 3.6K. And I mean, the model has him at. I mean, he's the fourth best value play under 4,500. So it's something to consider. He's 11% owned. I think it's probably appropriate. 29-minute projection is something that we like a lot. So Dean Wade, someone to consider. And then someone in the chat talking about Amir Coffey. He did get brought up in our Discord earlier.
Yeah.
And my problem with Amir Coffey, so they're gutted. They have no power forwards. He has to play minutes tonight. We have him projected for 21.5 at 1%, 0% ownership at the stone minimum price. But he's just such a bad fantasy point per minute guy that it's going to be tough for me to get there. I think we have enough other options paying a little bit more that
Yep.
we don't quite have to get here.
Yeah, and I don't know if we've spoke on Bones Highland yet. He's a guy I'll probably get to a little bit of. Certainly more expensive than Coffee, but yeah, Coffee, I kind of feel the same about Little, and probably even worse because Coffee's less likely to take threes. Um, yeah, there were times last year, or maybe it was during the COVID season, where the Clippers were really, really thin, and Coffee was playing like 30 minutes a night and
Yep.
still not getting anywhere close to 15, 20 fantasy points. So another guy who's out there getting his cardio and not necessarily what you want to be targeting for DFS.
And on that Bones Highland note, he's a little more popular than I would like tonight. But the things working in Bones' favor is that it's possible he could get there with regular run. And then if this game ends up blowing out, it's only a 9.5 point spread last time I looked. I guess it's down to, actually, is it down now? 6.5 point spread. Yeah. So that actually came way down from earlier. Not sure what changed there, but if he ends up getting some blowout run, he had the highest usage on the Nuggets for half the season last year, and Nikola Jokic is on the Nuggets. This guy just doesn't care about anything but getting his own. And so if he can get there in the regular time and he can get there in the blowout run, but I do not like this 20%. I think I'd rather go to other spots, but he's perfectly fine to play. He's showing up a little bit in my runs.
Yeah, I'm with you. I wish he was lower owned because I do like to play a lot. But yeah, 20% for him. But yeah, I mean, it's rare you find guys like that are in the regular rotation, but also heavily involved in blowouts. And he certainly fits that bill. But again, 20% for a player like that who kind of needs a few things to go his way to even be close to some of these other value guards. It's tough for me to get excited about at 20%.
So our predictions did come true. Donovan Mitchell is available to play today, and Karis LeVert is out. And so that's how I've been building anyway. I don't have to change anything. Just look at Cleveland very quickly. So Donovan Mitchell, I love him. I'm curious if people are going to be a little bit scared to play him. I don't think so. His price tag's high. I know the field is going to be getting to KD, so I'm hoping Donovan Mitchell comes in a little bit below this. So last time he was chalk, he did come in pretty far under what I expected to him, actually. He was only 25% owned. But then Max Strus is going to look great. Dean Wade, still a good value play. Isaac Okoro, Nick mentioned, he's going to be a fine value play. And then Evan Mobley, I don't know. He displayed a ceiling without Donovan Mitchell out. He's not pulling any ownership on DraftKings. Is that ownership going to Julius Randle? Let's see. Julius is pulling 31% ownership. And so I would expect Mobley's ownership to come up a little bit or just show up higher than this 12%. But I think he's a perfectly fine pivot play to get to.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's this low owned. And if this holds, I'm going to load up on him. I mean, he's coming off a massive game. I know he was disappointing that first game, but he's been really putting up numbers. The price came up, yeah, but I think that's what's scaring people off, but not a lot. I mean, he's just over 8K on both sites. I mean, guy who does it all. I mean, he's going to shoot. He's going to be heavily involved under the rim, playing a lot of center with Allen out of the lineup. Really, really, really strong play. Comparable to Randall at lower ownership on DK. He's more popular than Randall on FanDuel, though. So, yeah, I will say this is a situation where definitely look at the ownership, probably go with the lower owned guy. But those are two players I like a lot. But it's going to be tough to fit both if you're going to have guys like KD and Mitchell in your lineup as well.
So let's go ahead and build our DraftKings dummy. We're going to be getting out of here in just a few minutes, but I think that we're going to start our lineups with Kevin Durant tonight. Does that sound good?
Yeah, let's do it. Can we see if we can fit Durant and Mitchell?
Yeah, let's do that. Donovan Mitchell at shooting guard, Durant at power forward. And then what are our top value plays overall?
I know we have Goodwin at point guard.
Let's go ahead and throw him in there.
Let me sort by value here.
And just so you guys know, like Goodwin and Durant are playing in the late game. I'm not going to adjust it because it's just a little bit easier, but always make sure these guys are in the guard forward utility spots if you're doing that, and put the early game guys up here. Just it gives you more flexibility if something happens.
Mm-hmm. What else do we have?
We got one of the Phoenix guys, one of the Phoenix value plays besides Goodwin and Durant. I think let's try and get one of these guys in there. So.
Yeah, they all look the same own now, which is funny. I mean, we have Okogie or Allen or Gordon. Gordon's a 1K more than Okogie. Maybe we go with Okogie.
Let's just go with the Kogi since he's showing up at the top of the DK value on the model. Josh
Mm-hmm.
Kogi at small forward. Now we have about 5,200 left for each position. It's going to be tough to fit in any of the other studs. Brunson, Randall.
Let's go with Mitchell since we both like him. Mitchell Robinson, that is,
Oh, love
at
that.
center.
That's a great
He's
call.
cheap.
Yep. This is probably pretty close to what my core is going to look like tonight. Like I'm going to swap out Josh Okogie, but the other guys, this is probably where I'm starting my builds tonight.
Oh yeah.
So if 5,200 left, guard forward utility.
We got Norm Powell at 4,400.
Let's throw
If
Norm
he's
Powell in
in,
there.
and if we go Norm, we might be able to fit Struce. I don't know. There's a lot of decent. I'm trying to see the ownerships though.
I mean,
Yeah,
for
I do
me,
like Norm if he's in, but
he has to play.
right,
And
right.
so we can fit in. Actually, I kind of like the way this is looking. This is going to be a pretty chalky lineup if you go this way. So, don't copy our lineups exactly. And it's,
Yeah.
definitely don't play it in large fields. But if you're playing small fields, this is a good base. We could throw in Struce and then, we're missing on Sochan by 100. I thought that was going to be a perfect fit.
Suggs is 14% owned, 4,800 if you want to switch him with Powell, so we could pivot if we had to. That's an option. Just thinking out loud. I'm just looking for a low owned guy here. Okoro's 45. I don't know that we want to leave that much salary on the table.
Let's,
Sochan,
I do want to get
8% owned.
Let's take him out. Let's try and fit Sochan. We have that leaves us 5,700. We can fit in Fultz, Wendell Carter, Cole Anthony, maybe, and
Oh, yeah. Any
any
of
of those
them.
guys. Yeah, any of those guys would sound good to me. And we have a question in chat from Anson. You like Mobley over Nurkic, though? No, not necessarily. It's just that when comparing Nurkic's ownership and price to Mobley's ownership and price, I think Mobley's slightly underowned, and Nurkic is probably appropriately owned. So Nurkic is
Yeah.
the better play tonight. But
Point per dollar.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm gonna have more Nurkic in my lineups than I am Mobley, but it's just I like Mobley more than the field, and I like Nurkic, I guess, the same as the field, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. And I will say, I think Mobley scores more fantasy points, but he's also 2K more expensive almost. So point per dollar, Nurkic certainly the better play. Mobley the better ownership play with maybe the higher ceiling, generally speaking. But yeah, price does matter, unfortunately.
I mean, just looking at his points per minute here, I mean, 28 minutes, both in foul trouble. Last game blew out. He only played 23. What do we have Nurkic projected for? Let me just double check. Uh, just make this easy. Center. So we have Nurkic projected for 29 minutes, which is still more than he played in all of these games. And so if Nurkic gets 29 minutes, 6,700, he's clearly better than a fantasy point per minute guy with
Yeah,
this specific Phoenix team they're rolling out tonight. So Nurkic is the chalk center. Like, play Nurkic, but
yeah.
we're
We're
just
not going to
saying
say we
like the
don't
other
like
guys.
Nurkic
Yeah.
just because we're talking up other centers. Yeah, got to make that clear. But yeah, Mobley. I mean, at 13% on DK, that has to come up with Levert out. I can't imagine he stays that low.
I would think so. Because the thing is, even if so, he played 33 minutes, he put up 22 shots with Donovan Mitchell on the court. He's probably not going to get 22 shots, but maybe
No.
without Karis LeVert, maybe he can get close. He put up a strong double double, got 3 blocks. I mean, Evan Mobley, I think he looks great. So it
Yeah.
just his ownership is too low. Don't go
It's a
crazy
big
on him.
salary jump. I think it's really scaring people that he went almost 1K up. But yeah, it's almost warranted, I think.
And so we're going to get out of here in just a few minutes, but it's really difficult to build a FanDuel lineup on screen. But I just want to talk about some of my core plays on FanDuel for you guys building for FanDuel. Hopefully, they don't have those issues today. But it looks like Markel Fultz is going to be very popular. Grayson Allen is going to be pretty popular. Obviously, KD. We're still getting to KD. I'm still getting to Donovan Mitchell, but the price is slightly more prohibitive over there. And
A just refresh ownership. Yeah, Fultz, Goodwin, Allen. Yeah, it looks like Katie and Mitchell both under 50% as things stand. Again, it's just tough to fit a bunch of studs with decent mid-range value. It's not like there's a ton of great punts tonight, but I think, like I said, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go a little bit stars and scrubsy and take some risks on some of these grosser plays and hope a couple of them work out because I'm pretty confident in guys like Mitchell Durant. And then yeah, Goodwin's core for me on FanDuel for sure. I'm going to
yep,
go back to Paulo. I am surprised he's that popular. I think the past few days he hasn't been as popular on FanDuel as we've been projecting or anyone has been projecting. Um, I don't know. I just think recency bias is just really ringing in people's ears right now. So I'm hoping he's lower owned than that 39% because I do want to get to some.
Yeah, and just if you're looking for where to start your builds, just sort by FD% and just look who's the highest owned, and it's usually a pretty good indicator, especially if the
Yeah.
model agrees with their OF value, with their DK value, and so all those guys we just mentioned, Kawhi is going to be pretty popular. His price is incorrect. Yusuf Nurkic is still fine over on FanDuel. He's still pulling the same ownership at 7K. Evan Mobley's a lot more popular on FanDuel, but it makes sense just due to the roster construction over there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, just mix in a bunch of the value plays we talked about. Jalen Suggs, Eric Gordon, Josh Kogi, Grayson Allen.
Yeah. I think we still have Levert in the model right now. So guys like Strus are going to shoot up in terms of ownership as well. But
And another reason to join the site so you can have an updated model. Like everything changed after we
yeah,
got
it's
off
going to
stream
update
yesterday.
several times between now and lock. So you definitely worth getting in there.
Surprise PG or Kawhi doesn't replace Mitchell or Durant. It's just that so Kawhi is kind of chalky on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, well, PG is the contrarian play on both sides, but Kawhi on DraftKings is also slightly contrarian. And so if you're doing anything but playing Kevin Durant and Donovan Mitchell together, you don't have to do as much. And there was some talk in the Discord earlier about how to get different tonight. I think we named enough guys that you don't have to super force it. I mean, there was a contest I won last season, and the only difference, like my lineup was super chalk, except for like a 5% owned Jeremy Sochan, and that was enough to take down the whole contest. So
Yeah,
don't
it only takes one guy.
yeah, don't do too much. I mean, I'm certainly going to have lineups with two of those guys together, but just I think it's going to lead to making more mistakes than it's going to help you if you're trying to get different too hard. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
sometimes I submit my lineups and I open it up, especially on a short slate, and I'm just like, wow, I played Chalk City today, but
Yeah.
still tend to do well enough. It's just tougher to take down a tournament.
Yeah, those nights you'll make money and you may not take anything down. But I mean, the other thing too is we have late swap. So if you're building, you have chalky lineups, things lock at 7:30, and you say, "Oh, hey, I'm doing pretty well," but I'm a little bit worried that my later guys are chalk. You can swap throughout the night, try to get lower owned guys in there so you can climb up that leaderboard. There's been times where I have very similar lineups. This is a little bit out there as a strategy, but if you have two lineups that are even the same, you can, and they're doing well, you can pivot off and try to branch out different ways. Like I'm not wording this well at all right now, but use late swap to your advantage, not only when players are injured, but to get lower owned if you're doing well with chalk. And if chalk is failing, that's another reason to get different. So late swap's important even without injuries. Definitely keep an eye on that ownership. Even after the slate locks, you'll see updates in the model.
Absolutely. And so give us a like, guys. Appreciate you all for showing up. Subscribe to the channel so you get notifications when we're live. We are live at 5:45 Eastern every single day. We'll have our Discord live a little bit later today because lock is about a half hour later than usual. That should be starting in about 20 minutes from now. There's instructions in the description below on how to join the Discord. Super easy. But yeah, Nick, any final thoughts? We're going to get out of here.
No final thoughts. Nice 3-gamer tonight. Let's hopefully make some money.
Yeah, good luck, guys, and
Happy
thanks for joining
Halloween.
us. Yeah, happy Halloween. Let's go. Let's just have a good night.
Sounds good.